North Korean leader Kim Jong-un appears to have limped onto stage at an event to mark the anniversary of his grandfather's death. Footage broadcast by the country's state-run television showed Kim walking into the centre of a large stage with a limp in front of a huge portrait of his grandfather emblazoned onto a red flag.
Welcome back to MidPoint, and welcome back former senior advisor to the U.S. State Department and principal for D.C. International Advisory, Christian Whiton, and former chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, Pete Hoekstra. We will get to the diminutive leader in just a moment. But first of all, gentlemen, let me get your opinion on this. To you first, Pete, this report, ISIS aims to get hold of nuclear weapons with the help of Russia, to whom it will offer access to gas fields it controls in Iraq's Anbar province in return for the Kremlin to give up Iran and its nuclear programs and hand over its secrets. Would the Russians really make such a deal?
Absolutely not. This is actually one thing that the Russians and the U.S. Are kind of united in. We both view ISIS and radical jihadism as a threat to our national security. The Russians would never make that kind of a deal with ISIS. Absolutely not.
To you, Christian, as well, possibly one of the most foolish things that you possibly have heard cross the media's path with regard to ISIS and nukes?
Yeah, it certainly sounds quite outlandish, even by Russian standards.
Okay, and that came from the UK weekly newspaper, the Sunday Times, reporting that. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the diminutive leader. Christian, I'll stay with you. Where in the world is Kim Jong-un? He's been missing for a while, and that has to bring about just a little bit of uncertainty here because one never knows what goes on in North Korea, and there are people saying that it's a possible coup, or perhaps he's just resting some weary ankles from all that exercising that he's doing. What do you think?
Well, that's right, Ed. There are two theories. One is that he is recovering from surgery relating to his weight problem and stress that put on his ankles. The other theory coming from sort of the modern equivalent of Kremlinologists. You'll recall during USSR days, there were people who made an entire sort of field of science out of looking at the tiny bits of information that came out of Moscow. People who were pictured, one person away from the leader last year are now two people away. Well, he must have fallen out of favor. Those people think that this is very odd that the leader has dropped from sight and that his two senior-most deputies actually went to South Korea and engaged in impromptu talks with South Korea. There's some people talking about perhaps a fall from grace or a coup. I just don't think you'd have those other senior North Korean leaders traveling if really there was some sort of revolution or major change afoot in Pyongyang. But ultimately, we don't really know. Our $50 billion a year intelligence community doesn't really know.
All right, now, wait a minute. You just struck on something there, a $50 billion a year intelligence community. I'm looking at Pete, and he's smiling when he hears that. So, Pete, you hear $50 billion and we don't know what's going on. That in itself has got to be a little embarrassing.
It's a little embarrassing. Number one, the $50 billion, because this is now a publicly released number. $50 billion is low. But the other character, the other statement is absolutely accurate. We do not have a good insight into what's going on in North Korea. We haven't had it for a long time, and we don't have it now.
If there indeed was to be a coup, Pete, how dangerous would that be, and what dominoes might we see fall then in North Korea?
Well, the thing that happens with a coup, and again, we know what we know about the current leadership. If there is a coup, it creates a whole new frame of uncertainty. North Korea has a nuclear program. They probably got chemical weapons. They've been marketing, they've been distributing their nuclear program to other countries. So the thing there is the uncertainty. If there is a coup, if there is new leadership, we just don't know what direction that they would move in. Would they become more extreme, or hopefully would they become more engaged with the rest of the world? Would they sideline their nuke program? But there's just there's not enough information for us to make an accurate assessment at this time.
I got about a minute left, Pete. What's your best guess then?
My best guess is we will probably know within the next 2 to 3 weeks and get a better insight. But up until that point, it's all guessing. My guess is that he's probably recovering from surgery, that there has not been a coup, that there's been a vacuum, and he will reappear in the next he'll reappear in the next couple of weeks, and it will be North Korea as usual.
North Korea as usual. Christian, then to you, final word here. What's your best guess on if indeed there would be a coup, what kind of North Korea we'd see emerge?
Oh, it's likely you'd see one that's willing at least to be a little less aggressive. And of course, China would have some say and influence. But I think, what really may be going on is that North Korea sees what's going on in the world, sees a U.S. that has a feckless foreign policy and really wants to restart those six-party talks where it is the grande, where it gets showered in foreign aid from South Korea and the United States. This happened under Clinton and it happened under Condi Rice. So my guess is they want to get back in on that game and see if they can't sucker us for some money.
Feckless foreign policy and sucker us for more money. Boy, it's just fitting that we go ahead and end it right there. Pete Hoekstra and Christian Whiton, thank you so much, gentlemen. Look forward to the next time.
Thanks.
All right, later on this hour, baseball fans get involved in the Ferguson, Missouri shooting and raise questions about whether it's hate speech or support. That and a whole lot more coming up right here on MidPoint.